Hey everyone, welcome back to Maple Street and to Alfred Hitchcock Month. It's the end of August, however, I have one more video. I am extending Alfred Hitchcock Month to September 6th. I was out of town for a week in August and it threw off my posting schedule. However, I'm back in town and I have another fun video coming for you. Today we are talking about 5 movies that could easily be mistaken for Alfred Hitchcock films. I have done this video 2 times in the past. It's kind of becoming an annual tradition at this point, and I'm giving it the title Hitch Not instead of Hitchcock. That doesn't rhyme as well when I say it out loud. The only criteria that these movies have to meet is, for one, they have to be a movie that came out in the time frame that Alfred Hitchcock was actively making movies, so pretty much any time from the late 20s to the early 70s. In addition to that, they have to have some sort of element that is similar to Hitchcock's style, and so the most obvious one is suspense. He was known as the master of suspense, and so if these movies have any element of suspense, I think it is fair to at least consider them similar to Alfred Hitchcock movies. And then in addition to suspense, there are some themes that people don't instantly associate with Alfred Hitchcock, such as romantic films, especially if there's some sort of conflict in the romance, if there's some sort of twist ending, an iconic movie score, if it has creepy vibes in general, if there's good acting, or if it got nominated for Oscars. The list goes on and on. I think you get the idea. And a clarification that I have to make every year, this is in no way me putting down the directors of the films. I don't want to minimize the talent that they put into their work by automatically labeling it as a Hitchcock film that Hitchcock didn't direct. First movie I want to talk about is from 1940. It is The Letter. This movie was directed by William Wyler and it starred Bette Davis. The reason this gives Hitchcock vibes to me is because, for one, we are focusing on a villainous main character. That's yet again another attribute that I didn't even mention earlier, but Alfred Hitchcock movies tend to focus on the villain rather than the hero. At least there's enough out there that focus on the villain where it's notable. The movie is about Bette Davis. It starts right away with her shooting a man to death, and she thinks that she's able to get away with a murder until a suspicious letter arises that basically destroys any alibi that she has to her innocence. And so not only are we following a villainous character, but there's also that element of suspense of whether or not she will be discovered and ultimately proven guilty of the crime that she committed. And one of the things that makes Alfred Hitchcock movies so suspenseful is that the audience is in on the story. It's that classic example Hitchcock uses comparing surprise versus suspense. If a couple is sharing a meal over dinner and suddenly the restaurant blows up, that's surprise. However, if you are watching the same exact scene and you know that the bomb is ticking and it's going to blow up any moment, that is suspense. And us knowing as an audience that she did commit the crime, but she's actively trying to stay innocent, that to me builds up suspense and makes me question at least how is this going to end. So for that, it deserves to be recognized. Next movie I'm talking about is Laura from 1944. This movie was directed by Otto Preminger. It stars Dana Andrews, Gene Tierney, and Clifton Webb. There's also Vincent Price and Judith Anderson, who plays a supporting role in an actual Alfred Hitchcock movie. But the reason I'm giving this one a shout out is because of the mystery and the twist in the story. Also, the general plot line is a police detective falling in love with the woman whose murder he's currently investigating. And that just sounds Hitchcockian to me as well. I'm not about to spoil it at all, but let's just say something happens that I wasn't expecting. Why am I explaining what a twist is to you? A twist happens and I enjoyed it, and it put me in a position where I didn't know where the movie was going to go, whereas before I had a pretty clear picture of, okay, they're going to do this and that, but with the twist happening, it changed everything up. So for that, I'm giving it a shout out, and I especially recommend it for November if you participate in Noirvember. Next up, I'm talking about No Highway in the Sky from 1951. This movie was directed by Henry Koster and stars James Stewart. It has a supporting performance from Marlene Dietrich and Glynis Johns. The reason I'm giving this one a shout out is for its suspense. James Stewart is playing an aeronautical engineer who's very smart about the construction of planes and how they function. And one day, as he's traveling on one of the planes that he designed, he realizes there is a fatal flaw in the design that could lead to all of their death. The problem is so big that if they reach a certain distance or use enough power, the plane could just stop working and crash, killing all on board. And so very suspenseful, because you as the audience know that time is ticking, and if they don't solve the problem soon enough, they could go down and die. I think the first 2/3 or so are the strongest elements of the movie. After that, it goes a little bit off course in a direction that I wasn't a huge fan of, but it's really the element of not knowing how it is going to turn out that really stood out to me. Plus, James Stewart and Marlene Dietrich, both actors who worked with Alfred Hitchcock, so that's always a good reason too. Next up, I'm talking about The Night of the Hunter from 1955. This was directed by Charles Laughton, a favorite of mine on this channel, and it stars Robert Mitchum as well as some great supporting actors, including Shelley Winters, Lillian Gish, and then some child performances from Billy Chapin and Sally Jane Bruce. The reason I'm giving it a shout out is because it has very similar vibes to Strangers on a Train, in the sense that, kind of like Strangers on a Train, this psychopathic killer is stalking the main character. That's very similar to what The Night of the Hunter plot is. Robert Mitchum plays this posing preacher who is stalking these two children because he knows about some money that they are hiding away and he wants the money. And so similar vibes to Strangers on a Train in terms of suspense and stalking. Plus, plain and simple, it's an eerie movie, and Alfred Hitchcock has quite a few eerie movies himself, most notably Psycho. Every time I mention The Night of the Hunter on this channel, I feel obligated to give a shout out to the documentary that comes with the Criterion, which is a behind-the-scenes look at Charles Laughton directing The Night of the Hunter. I've never seen behind-the-scenes footage from an old black and white movie, and to have a documentary that is basically a movie's length of just him directing and being a filmmaker, it's movie magic. It is a treasure in cinema history. And I'm a little peeved because I'm looking on Letterboxd, the official title of it, and I think Letterboxd removed the documentary from their database, which is shocking, but it's called Charles Laughton Directing Night of the Hunter. It's a supplement on the Criterion.
It's me, John Harper. You told me to come. You got, do it now.
It's me, John Harper and Pro. You told me to come.
The final movie I'm talking about today is Moratori. It's from 1965, directed by Bernhard Wicki. It stars Marlon Brando and has a supporting performance from Yul Brynner. And the basic plot of the movie is Marlon Brando is forced to go undercover on this ship impersonating an SS officer, and his point is to disable the scuttling charges so the captain cannot sink the ship should they be stopped by the English warships, because if they were to sink the ship, they lose all the supplies that the English could use during the war. Playing an undercover SS officer is suspenseful enough. However, on top of that, he has a mission of trying to disable the scuttling charges without anyone noticing. And so it's a fun time watching the movie play out and anticipating whether or not he is going to be successful in his mission. There aren't really any other big themes that relate to Alfred Hitchcock except for the suspense and the mystery to the movie, but that within itself I think is a great reason to check it out. So there you have it, 5 more movies that could easily be mistaken for films directed by Hitchcock. If there's a certain movie you were expecting to see that didn't make the list, it's very possible it was on a previous year's video, so check those out. And if you have any recommendations, please comment them below. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for one more Alfred Hitchcock video related to the Oscar-nominated performances from his movies. Thanks for visiting Maple Street. Have a great day.